نحمده ونصلي ونسلم على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. So we started our discussion on Surah-Al-Ahzaab, and there was some background to it. The certain verses which asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to follow what has been revealed to you and don't go to please these non-Muslims because you're responsible to your to my commands. You're supposed to follow those, not to please these people. And now there has been some customs. The background is that in pagan Arabia, before Islamic time, in the Jahiliyyah time, they had a lot of customs. So in the next few ayat, in the beginning of the surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is refuting those customs. And three of them have been mentioned in here. The first one, they thought the person who is very smart and intelligent has two hearts. Compared to normal individual, one heart, you all have one heart, perhaps not even one. But the intelligent people would have two hearts, they thought. Because they could do all that, because they would see how could that person be so clever that he could do all those bits properly, controlling politically and socially and business-wise and in the spiritual world. So this man must have two hearts. That's what they believe. Allah we created you all equal in that sense. And then there's a custom about a concept called vihar. Vihar is when Vahar means back. Okay, I mentioned that Vahar is back. Front is called Batin. Batin, Zahir. Zahir is something which is apparent. Batin is something which is inside. So anyway, so this second custom was that they would call, if they're unhappy with their wife, so they would say, you know what, you're back to me like my mother's back, or you are to me like my mother, or your certain part of the body is like my mother. Means I'm not going to come close to you as husband. Means we are a stranger to each other. Rather than giving divorce, which is the normal way, they would liken the body or part of the body of that lady, the wife, to something which is haram abadan, like mother or sister. And they mean that get out, means I'm not going to be with you. This is called vihar. Okay. Surah Mujadala, in the beginning of Surah Mujadala, which is 28th juz beginning part, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given clear instruction and detail about vihar. Based on a lady companion, she came and she had the husband done vihar to her, and she was like furious about it. How could that be? Why would we allow that? She came and she asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, she kept coming and kept asking, Ya Rasulullah, I want answer to this. I want this problem to be sorted out. How could a man say that? If he really wants, he could just divorce me. Like, I'm not happy with this idea of, zihar. What is this? So Allah says, قَدْ سَمِعَ اللَّهُ قَوْلَ الَّتِي تُجَادِلُكَ فِي زَوْجِهَا. Anyway, so we'll cover that there. Anyway, so that is then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made very clear it is not permissible to do that. Those who have done it, they have to break that. But since it is considered a qasam, qasam means oath. You have taken the oath. You have likened something to a mahram abadiyah. Now you have to then expiate for that. You have to fast for 60 days in a row. Free a slave. That sort of punishment. Allah said one or the other. And other, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then. So that would be discussed there. So that is another custom which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this surah hinted to and said that don't do. And third is where the adopted son in Arabia, if you had adopted someone as a son, you would call him by your name. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had this companion called Zayd radiallahu ta'ala anhu. So Zayd was not actually a slave, but was from a noble family, from a different tribe. Someone in a big fair, a festival. There was big marketplace, some fun happening. In that fair, he was kidnapped and then taken as slave, and then was sold. And in the marketplace, he was bought by the cousin of Sayyidah Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha. Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha was given that Zayd as a gift. She gave it to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as a gift. So Zayd being young boy, 7, 8 year old, in the house as a slave. And he was living in the house helping Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam day-to-day activities, away from his parents. Time went on. After some months, like slowly and slowly, the news came to the father. Oh, your son, actually, we saw him in Makkah. So, okay, they came. Father and the uncle, they both came and they tried to find where Zayd is. And they identified, so Muhammad ibn Abdullah, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, not prophet at that point. He has this young boy. So they came, they met Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, "This is our son. He's not a slave. He was kidnapped. We finally found him. We want him back. Whatever money you want, we'll give it. We want to take him back. Please demand whatever you want." Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "As regards money, I'm not in need of. With regards to him coming to you, I don't mind, as long as he is happy with that." So Zayd, he was playing somewhere or doing something. They called him. He came. "Oh Zayd, do you recognize them?" "Yeah, this is my father and this is my uncle. MashaAllah, how are you?" "We're fine. They're here to take you." So, "Ya Rasulullah." He didn't say Ya Rasulullah at that point. "I don't want to go. I would rather be with you." "Father, are you crazy? What are you doing?" He said, "Oh my dad, the way they have kept me, the character that I've seen, the affection that I've seen, I would never find anywhere in my life. And I don't want to miss this opportunity. Let me be with him." Father, obviously, he was very upset. But he saw that son is really happy. He said, "Okay." So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "I can't sell him. I don't want to sell him. And I can't force him to go, because if he doesn't want to go, then it's unfair." But then he said, "To your comfort," and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam took him to Kaaba and said, "Oh people, lo and behold, I freed Zayd. And from today, he's my son. So his name is Zayd ibn Muhammad." That was the custom. They would call your adopted son as your son. He was called Zayd ibn Muhammad. He was a Sahabi afterwards. So Zayd stayed in Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's household. So the custom was that this man now is your true son. He's like true son. There's no difference between him and any other son that you may have your own son. So one of the injunctions is that they would inherit. If you die, your inheritance would go to your children, plus if you have spouse, your parents, also this adopted son as your own son. What are the other injunction? That son's wife is now your bahu. But in Punjabi they say nu. His daughter-in-law. You can't marry your daughter-in-law. Islam is haram. Daughter-in-law, son-in-law, they are mahram. Not to each other, to their respected father or mother-in-law. Okay? So and they are always remain mahram. You can never marry. Okay? So they would have the same custom. Adopted son, his wife, if he divorces, father cannot marry that, because they would consider it to be mahram forever. And that's not Islamic. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was here in this world to teach us everything in accordance with the injunctions of Sharia. So whatever was pertinent and appropriate, whatever befits the status of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he would carry that out. He would demonstrate it practically. And whatever was not practically okay for the status of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who would carry that out? The companion. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opted, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala selected these Sahaba to be the recipient of all those Sharia injunctions so that they can get Sharia in action, Islamic law in practice. Otherwise, we would have said today, yeah, but it's only in book. Where's the example? Everything in Sharia has been exemplified by either Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam or Sahaba. For example, certain action which befits the status of prophethood, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would carry out. A prophet can forget as a human being. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam forgot a few times in the prayers. A prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam or any prophet may oversleep and miss his fajr or any prayer. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did on one occasion. In order to say that that's okay as human, because rufi'atil aqlam, the pen has been lifted from someone who forgot or someone who slept, someone who is majnoon, someone who hasn't got brain. Anyway, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam could have been, as a prophet, the recipient of magic, someone doing magic on you, so he had that on himself. But what about applying the punishment, chopping the hand? Obviously, that is not befitting for a prophet to commit that heinous crime, stealing. None of the other action was appropriate because prophets are infallible. They cannot make mistakes, haram action, sin. They can't sin. They shouldn't. So what would happen? The companions, men, women, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is why you would not find one companion doing 20 mistakes. And they're normally not the commonest of the companion. They're like this one incident with this companion, that's done. One, and he got the punishment for that. Chopped his hand. A lady. A man committed zina. Got, stoned to death. Married he was. That's why. Another lady, separate. Because you would have said, yeah, it was only for men, not for women. Because we never had any example of a woman being ever stoned to death. Had it. Companion Amir. He got this attitude of, not attitude, I mean the problem of alcohol drinking. He couldn't stop. So he was flogged and flogged and flogged. And yet Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is supporting them for accepting their tawbah and whatnot. So this incident of adopting someone as your true son and considering him to be true son, you have to literally finish that off. It has to be wiped out because that's wrong custom, haram. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would not allow that. Why? Because in Sharia, there are 5 higher objectives generally. Every injunction of Sharia is there to protect one or more of those 5 higher objectives. They're called maqasid al-Sharia. Maqasid al-Sharia. Your life. So rules are there in Sharia. All the injunctions are there to protect your life, your wealth, your iman, faith, your honor, and your lineage. Your lineage. So your lineage has to be protected as well. So how do you protect your lineage? By being in the boundary of nikah. The father who actually fathered this individual who you are now calling your son has been tainted, has been tarnished. You have caused corruption there. You have done a wrong thing. Who is the father? You're saying, I'm father, but you're not. Biologically, so the lineage is not protected. Nikah is for that reason. You have to ensure that your lineage is protected. That is why zina is not allowed. Fornication is not allowed. Adultery is not permissible. It was a heinous crime in Islam. Because it does not protect your lineage. It goes against that. So calling someone your son you are exploiting someone else's lineage. So if someone else were to do it, it wouldn't have had the impact that is required for this, age-on custom or wrong custom to be abandoned completely or destroyed in the mind of people's mind. And so who did it? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So what happened in this surah, the story would come subsequently, where Zayd, being the adopted son of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he then got up, like he just became, mashallah, a mature boy, senior person. Then he married the cousin of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Zainab bint Jahash. Zainab bint Jahash, radiallahu ta'ala anha. They could not have a decent, appeal for each other. They carried on. Sayyidah Zainab didn't feel comfortable with Allah made it such so that we could see that exemplified. Zainab radiallahu ta'ala anha from noble family. Zayd was okay. He was from a noble family, but there has been a time when he was a slave. Wasn't he? He was sold as a slave. But there was some time. So that is why there's some discrepancy, some inequality. For whatever reason, that could be one of the reasons, but other reasons. And it's natural. People may have that dislike. But anyway, they couldn't be together. Zainab didn't like. Zainab wanted to be separated. Zayd was trying. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was advising them, keep saying, carry on as long as you try to mend, but they couldn't. And it tells us that in Islam it is permissible when you come to that situation where divorce is the answer. Divorce is fine. It's not haram. One might need to resort to divorce. Anyway, so Sayyid radiallahu ta'ala, that is why he is the only companion. Why? Because this was so strongly established, so deep rooted in the society that if the name wasn't mentioned, people would say, oh, maybe it's for someone else. So Allah specifically mentioned his name, and he's the only companion whose name is mentioned in the Quran. The one companion whose name is mentioned out of 124,000 companions. Only one. None of the Khulafa Rashidun, Abu Bakr, Umar, Usman, Ali, no one's name is mentioned in the Quran. None of the wives of Prophet Muhammad, none of the other people. One enemy, Abu Lahab, and one companion, Zayd. He was so beloved to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So فَلَمَّا قَضَى زَيْدٌ مِنْهَا وَطَرًا زَوَّجْنَاكَهَا, that will come later on. Anyway, so they divorce. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, we just separated them. And then after the iddah, waiting period, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was commanded to go and marry Zainab bint Jahash. And that is where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam obviously he had this feel that what would people say, and it's quite noble. People would not accept that, but had it been someone else, people would never have accepted it. But when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did it as Allah commanded him, it became known now. So that is what they're saying. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Quran, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So we left up to this ayah. Ma ja'ala Allahu li rajulin min qalbayni fi jawfi. وما جعل أزواجكم اللائي تظاهرون منهن أمهاتكم وما جعل أدعياءكم أبناءكم ذلكم قولكم بأفواهكم والله يقول الحق وهو يهدي السبيل. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not made two hearts in a man's chest. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not made your wife's back like your mother. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not made the one you call as your son, your true son. This is bad. This is a foul thing to say. Don't say it. This is mere saying. Don't call them by your name. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam changed his name from Zayd ibn Muhammad to Zayd ibn Haritha, back to father's name. يقول والله يقول الحق. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks the truth. وهو يهدي السبيل, and he guides you to the truth, to the correct path. I mentioned about zihar, so it's already been covered. And likewise this. Then Allah said, "Ud'uuhum li'abaihim huwa aqsatu 'inda Allah." Call them with their father's name, and that is the correct way. That is the best way in the eyes of Allah Subhanahu. فَإِن لَمْ maybe you don't know آباءهم, maybe you don't know their father's name. فَإِخْوَانُكُمْ فِي الدِّينِ, then they are your brother in Islam, in deen. Then make him my akhi, my brother. Don't call your father, because that will confuse. وَمَوَالِيكُمْ, and they are your friends as well. Call them your friend. They entrust it to you. وَلَيْسَ عَلَيْكُمْ جُنَاحٌ فِيمَا أَخْطَأْتُمْ بِهِ. Now someone will say, oh, so Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam made a mistake. No. So Allah says, you haven't got any blame or sin on you because you did it without knowing. At that point, it wasn't made haram at that point. So it was before that. Now if you do it, then yeah, that would be. You understand that? So Sharia didn't come. وَلَكِنْ مَا تَعَمَّدَتْ قُلُوبُكُمْ. If you accidentally call someone, oh my son, come here, oh son, give me a glass of water. That's fine. If you don't mean that I'm your father or you're my son, in that sense. It's quite common, isn't it? We normally call beta. We don't mean beta as in beta. Just say it. It's a way of saying, cultural thing. وَكَانَ اللَّهُ غَفُورًا رَحِيمًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is forgiving. Hey, so this is called mutabanna. The term is called mutabanna. Mutabanna. To make someone your ibn. Ibn, son. So make someone your ibn, your son. And so make sure that we understand that, and it's wrong. Now, adopted son, these days, people, even now, there's this problem where you got a, someone from refugees or someone from adoption happening here. There are the people who are not known about their lineage. So you just take them, or emotionally he wouldn't be happy, so let me just call him my son. And you put in the document you as father. Haram, not allowed. You cannot do that. It's not halal at all. You have to tell them their true parents, whoever they are. Even if you don't know, they say, I don't know. You're my brother, but I don't know your father. We found you somewhere. Be honest to them. Yeah. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam warned us about this. Hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih al-Muslim. Abdullah ibn Umar narrates that before the revelation of this verse, we used to call Zayd ibn Haritha by the name of Zayd ibn Muhammad, because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had taken him as his adopted son. After the revelation of this verse, this ayah, we abandoned this practice. So the ruling is that you do not do that. You call them with their true fathers. But even then, sometimes we do say beta, oh my son. If we could avoid that, that's even better. Don't say, especially when there's a doubt. If there's a possibility of doubt, so you've just taken someone with you and that nephew or niece or whoever is with you, people might confuse you as father because you have got that much difference, and it could be people just don't know. So in that situation, oh, this is my son. Is he really? No, he's not. But he might feel that that's the case, so don't do it in that situation. Okay? Don't confuse people. But when there's no confusion, the father is here, son is sitting there. So, beta, come on in here. Everyone knows that is his son. I'm calling son as a metaphor, as a young boy in that sense. That is okay. But wherever there's confusion, never do that. But that is why it was preposterous for them to just even charge Rasulullah with this. Anyway, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sorted it out. They started calling Rasulullah. See what he did, what has he done? They were not happy. The non-Muslims. Muslims were okay. Non-Muslims weren't. Anyway. Now, they called Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam all the different names for him, not following their custom. And I put that as a point to think about. There are many such practices and customs in our lives, which we have seen our forefathers doing, which has no basis in Sharia, but we think, do it. If you don't, then you're not part of us. That's more Quraishi pagans' way, not Muhammadi Muslims' way. So we should be careful about what we do. Celebrate, do whatever you do, as long as you do not charge others. And there are people who've gone to extreme where they charge others, saying that since you don't do it, it's just you haven't got any love for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And there are certain people who are knowledgeable as well. They've gone to those extremes, and that's a shameful thing to do. Making something which has not been part of Sharia is at the most permissible, maybe recommended by some scholar, and it's perfectly fine. But there are certain people who made that into aqidah. There are many practices in Shia sect which has become part of their deen. In the morning, for them, is part of deen. If you don't do, you just completely ignorant, perhaps not even Muslim in Muharram. If you don't do those processions on those days, you are actually deviant. So don't go there. That is extremely wrong. This is the wrong attitude. Final point on this. In the last few years, 4, 5, 7, 8 years, actually, there's been some people. That's a problem with little knowledge. So they've read this hadith, which is coming in a minute, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas mentioned, that whoever claims to belong or ascribes himself to other than his father, his biological father, knowing that he's not his father, then paradise will be derided from him. He denied to him. He'd be like, he would not have entry to paradise. He'd be sinful. He is really a bad person. He'll be punished. So based on that, some people would say, oh, you can't adopt your husband's name, because then you are saying that I'm so and so, and that's wrong. You can't adopt any of your husband. That's wrong understanding. Especially in the modern time, the situation is such that if you, after marriage, as a woman, put your name and next to this is your father's name, people actually feel that is your husband. Isn't that the case? You should say, I'm so and so with. Norm is now that you would consider that second name to be the husband if you know the person is married. If you know the lady is married, the next name is going to be. Do we confuse that? Oh, since that is father. No one confuses as your father. So adopting your husband's name in the modern time is perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's neither recommended nor is it haram. So the people on two extremes both craze. But I would suggest it's better to not keep your father's name after your marriage, because unless you put a bint in the middle, so that it doesn't confuse. But most of the time, you're not calling your father, because you are actually doing the reverse. Your father's name would be attached to you after marriage, and people would consider your father to be your husband. That's completely odd and crazy stuff. Don't you think? This is how it would be, because the norm has changed. So there's nothing wrong with that. Now, if you look at some of the historical figures, Isa ibn Maryam. So if you take it in absolute term that it is haram to put other than your father's name next to you, then Isa ibn Maryam, he didn't have a father anyway. But his mother's name is there. You say, oh, but that was Isa's exceptional. Fine. But what about the Sahabi called Abdullah ibn Maktoum? Maktoum. Mother of Maktoum, that he's been attached to. But it says bin there, make it very clear. Abdullah, the son of mother of Maktoum. No problem with that. It's not father, mother. So which means that you can have that. Other than father. So just those who say it's absolute, it should just be your father. Wrong. This is Sahabi. During the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, a muazzin of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would call adhan all the time. There you are. He's a blind Sahabi, by the way. Then Muhammad ibn al-Hanafiya, this is son of Sayyidina Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu. From not Fatima radiallahu ta'ala, but afterwards, second man. After Fatima passed away radiallahu ta'ala. And it's called Muhammad ibn Hanafiya. Hanafiya being the lady from the Hanafi tribe. That's the mother's title. And Shurahbil bin Hasan, another companion towards his mother. Not a problem. So if you say it has to be father, then what about mother? Why could you have mother then not? Or either father or mother. That's wrong understanding. So yes, as long as there's no confusion, it's perfectly fine. You can change it. You don't have to, but both positions are the extreme. Either make it haram or make it wajib. Both wrong. What's okay is okay. The norm is that you can keep it. Any question on that? Jazakallah khairah. We shall come back after the prayers.